Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, founder and CEO at recruiting and consulting firm Riderflex. If you think today's tip or guest interview can help someone you know, please share this with them. And if you enjoy listening to our show, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button on the episodes. Finally, aside from our podcast, our day job here at Riderflex is to provide recruiting, staffing, and consulting services. You can visit riderflex.com to learn more about us and get the information on the services we provide. And now, a quick word from our sponsor and friends at Marketing 360.
Try the #1 marketing platform for small business. Everything you need from design to marketing to CRM. Learn more at marketing360.com. Marketing 360. Fuel your brand.
Larry Hartman on the Riderflex podcast. Hi, Larry. How are you?
Hey, Steve. Good. How are you?
What part of Florida are you in today?
We have an office in Boca Raton, and it's usually sunny here. So it's another one of those great days in Florida.
I've been there many times. That is not a bad place to be as December and January approach.
Exactly. That's the idea.
I remember the first time I went to South Florida in the wintertime when I was a younger manager, and I thought, oh, okay, now I know why people come to South Florida in the winter.
Yeah.
Is that where are you at full time? Is that where you're at full time, or just for now, or you kind of move around?
That's where I'm in the winter. I mean, I've got a home up in North Jersey, New York area. So, but over time, just figured out there's no reason not to be where the weather's nice in the winter months. And so for our business, it's pretty spread out around the world. So I can be anywhere with the good internet. So it's worked out great.
Awesome. Give the listeners a little background about Larry Hartman personally before we get into business, if you don't mind. Where you grew up, maybe some family stuff, mom, dad, siblings. Give us some early life stuff, if you don't mind.
Yeah, happy to. So born and raised in California, Southern California. So that's probably why I tend to return to warm weather. So I miss it. And spent 30 years in California, went to Cal State Fullerton, got a business degree, got married, been married now 36 years. So
Congrats.
I've got 3 boys spread all around the country. One's in Utah, one's in Denver, one's in New Jersey. And personally love to fish, love to golf, love the outdoors, and big sports fan. So, and been in New York area now 30 years, and kind of now splitting that between Florida and New York a bit. So,
how about your folks? Are they still around? Have they passed? What's the story there?
No, they're both passed on. So,
okay. And what'd your dad do?
He was an accountant, and my mom was a church secretary. But they had a coin laundromat in their spare time. So I grew up, and when they come home from work, we'd all go over and spend our evenings cleaning up the coin laundry, emptying the change out, filling the soap machine. So it was a hardworking kind of I'd say a family that didn't stop working, didn't take many vacations, and just work hard to make ends meet. Kind of thing.
I see. So is that where the whole finance and accounting and some of that stuff came into play early in your career because you were a numbers guy from your dad? Is that how that happened?
No, I mean, I actually started as an accounting major in school, and after one accounting class, when I couldn't find 3 cents for 5 hours at night, said, this is a bad area, and I switched to marketing. So, I mean, I certainly know my way around numbers, but I decided early on I was, not following my father's footsteps as accountants, and made the switch over to the marketing side of things.
Now, were you, how many siblings?
I've got 2 sisters who both live out in California.
2 sisters. Okay. So were you the good kid, the bad kid, in the middle? Like where were you?
I was the young son, and you kind of got away with everything. So they were 5 and 6 years older. So I got kind of, the good treatment. They covered for me when I got in trouble, and, it's kind of like it's probably good being the youngest.
I saw something in your profile, faith-based. I saw some faith stuff. So, and then you just mentioned your mom's involvement in the church. And so I'm going to guess a fairly conservative household there. Probably not a lot of drinking, smoking, and partying going on at your place, I don't think. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, no, I was raised in a Baptist family, and very conservative. Yeah. In terms of of kind of
Okay.
upbringing. And certainly I think for me, faith's a big part of who I am, and carried that forward. And it's part of hopefully what drives, happiness and success for me.
Even in college, you didn't cut loose. You didn't
Oh
like.
yeah. Well, for college years, you get like a redo for those years. Yeah. I don't know. I'd say, certainly, certainly that was a different period, but quickly stepped back to my school.
By the way, don't sometimes you kind of like, man, I wish I could go back and do that again. That was kind of fun.
It was a lot of fun. I told my three boys, those college years are as good as it gets. You have no responsibilities. It's nothing but fun. Go get some good grades. And, I think it's, if you knew it then, you probably would enjoy it a lot more, but it is.
Yeah. Did you meet your wife there?
I met her actually in college when I was working. She hired me for a sales job when I was a college kid. So we met.
She was your boss.
She was my boss. And
geez, this is before HR cracked down on supervisors flirting with their employees.
Yeah, no, that was encouraged back then. That was kind of the 80s. That stuff kind of worked back then. So
right.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I talk to people about that all the time. I always tell them, I'm like, look, man, in the late 80s and early 90s when I was manager, there was. I mean, the HR rules were so non-existent or relaxed at that point for so many things. Anyway, okay, so move us just a little bit through your career a tad, and what you don't have to go through everything, but what I'm really most interested in is the switch, right? How you made the jump over into executive search, but kind of give us an early career and then the jump, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, I'll do that, Steve. So my first job out of college, I started a company with two partners in the financial service space, and it was kind of interesting. It was we didn't know anything about the business. We were lending money to doctors and hospitals to finance capital equipment, and we ended up successfully growing the business to about an $80 million revenue business 10 years later.
Wow.
We had this dream to take the company public, which we did. We ended up trading on the Nasdaq, and I was
nice.
34-year-old kid flying to Europe on the Concorde, doing a road show, just thinking America is a great country.
Awesome.
Nothing about a business started. So we ended up getting it public and traded it as a Nasdaq firm for 3 years, got it to about 200 million in revenues, and then we sold it to American Express.
Wow. So, that's okay. That's what happened. Okay. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great. It was everything from startup, fast-growing private company, Inc. 500, public company, and then ultimately the sale. And so the only time I really worked for somebody was the 3 years when American Express, owned me, and I signed my life away and gave them my 3 years. And that was kind of chapter one. And then I took some time off. Thought I might retire and golf every day, but my wife had better ideas that wasn't what I was going to spend my days doing. She gave me to-do lists that were not as much fun as golfing every day. So decided I had to get back to work after about a year, and but I had a non-compete in the lending space like forever. And so the entry into search was, I started doing executive recruiting and consulting in that financial service niche I came out of.
I see.
So I knew the business, knew the roles, had got a good Rolodex. So that was kind of an easy transition about 20 years ago. So that's how ZRG kind of started, from switching from a lending business to a human capital business.
And are you a founder at ZRG then?
Yeah, so I founded, partner Ken Vancini started it. He worked for me previously, and then I joined him about a year into the business. It was small then, about 5 employees, and I bought in, and he and I were 50-50 owners of the business, and grown it and gone through a couple of evolutions of ownership and structure since then.
Are you in charge? Are you captain right now of the cap table, or what's the ownership look like?
Yeah, so through the years, and I'll just give you the quick ZRG story. So, started 20 years ago. I'd say a lifestyle business. The first 12, 13 years, we were 25 employees. I ended up deciding to raise some capital about 6-7 years ago. I brought in a PE firm and bought out my partner. He just wasn't in the same mindset to want to scale and grow, and I was really ready to put my foot on the accelerator. So we brought in our first PE firm. We grew from like 9 million to 38 million the next 4 years. Took them out. Yeah, we brought in a second PE firm, RFE Investments, and a pension fund. Actually, the state of Missouri's pension fund invested, and that was 3 years ago. And they invested. We were about 38 million in revenues, and this year will be about 140 million. So about 350 employees around the world. So we've been able to really take advantage of accessing capital and scaling the business. And, we've been it's been a whole lot of fun. The last 6-7 years have been just a different trajectory. We're back growing things.
Congratulations, my friend. So only had to deal with 2 PE firms through all of that. That's it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah. So
okay. Can you share the current PE firm that invested? Can you share that, or is that
RFE Investments out of New Canaan, Connecticut? State of Missouri's pension fund invested. Were the 2 primary investors.
Okay.
That got involved in the company about 3 years ago. So.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. I mean, so it sounds to me like you had this nice lifestyle business going on with your partner, which this is what happens to so many boutique recruiting firms, right?
Yeah.
A single person or a couple of people, they get it going. Yeah, they're making $175,000 a year. Maybe they're making $200,000 a year. They're like, yeah, I'm good, and they just kind of cruise along, and they don't want to mess with it. But then there are guys that grew a company before and sold it and have that bug inside them, like you did from your earlier history, and you're like, it could be more exciting than that.
Yeah, I had the lifestyle business for a decade, right? I mean, so I saw every one of my kids' games. It's a great business. I had 3 boys playing sports and didn't miss a game, and was able to be there while they grew up. But then, off they went, and I had this itch that it's great growing things, but it involves taking some risk, involves giving up control, and involves some things that you got to be comfortable doing. And so, for me, I was in a spot where rolling the dice was wasn't a difficult decision. It was a lot of fun.
I see this all the time, Larry, where I talk to people that own firms in Colorado, because I'm based in Colorado. We have recruiters all over, but we're based here. And I'm always talking to other boutique owners, and I over coffee or whatever, happy hour, I'm always saying, hey, look, let's do something together. Let's partner. Let's if we put 5 or 6 of these boutique firms together, we have a $50 million firm in Colorado, like pretty fast. And I'm amazed at how often people just don't want to. I think they want to do their own thing. They think their process is the best way. They're already making $200,000 a year. They got their egos in check because they want to be captain. So they just don't want to talk about it. I'm amazed at that. So congratulations on getting it to where you have. I think it's very difficult. To get a boutique lifestyle firm to the volume you have it at right now. Congrats.
No, it is. No, and we've been through the cycle. I mean, I've bought 5 search firms in the last 3 years. So, we've been out in the market, part of our growth has been organically hiring. The other part has been finding niche search businesses that kind of fit what we're doing. So we bought some interesting businesses. We bought one in the sports recruiting space that does really fun stuff around head coaches, and they're doing roles like the head, the commissioner of the Pac-12. We did Atlanta Falcons head coaching search. We did, we moved Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian to Alabama, and from Alabama to Texas. So it's like fun stuff. And we got an entertainment business that we work with, like a Viacom. We placed the 2 co-presidents of CBS, and so we got all these interesting niches, and some of those niche businesses fit well within what we do. So we've been able to find businesses that that kind of could benefit from being part of a bigger platform.
What makes ZRG special compared to other big executive search firms? What makes you different and special?
Yeah, so I think in our space, we're at the senior level executive recruiting space, doing CEO board and kind of high-end retained search work. And our competition is these big 5 Korn Ferry, Heidrick, Spencer players. We're unique in that we're mid-size and we're global. So we've got offices around Europe, Asia, South America, and so we can be an alternative to the Korn Ferries and Heidricks and scale a relationship globally. And then we've invested in some cool technology. So we have our own kind of tech platform that enables hiring decisions, much like in lending used to enable credit decisions. And so we've got a bunch of information we gather in a search process that drives making a hiring decision. And so we've invested pretty significantly in a tech platform that goes on top of the search work we do, which is a bit of a unique value proposition that clients like.
Nice. Oh, was that okay? So that was a big part of the valuation number when the PE firm invested.
Yeah,
was
it's technology? Tricky, right? We're a human capital business relying on people. When PE looks at firms in our space, they want to know, is it more than just what's the firm value, and the assets that go in and out of the elevator every day that could leave. And so it's a challenge for businesses like ours to show that you've got some institutional equity in terms of what you're building.
That's why I'm so impressed with the cash that you've raised. We've been called a couple of times, and we're just a small boutique firm. We'll do probably $1.5 million this year. But
Yeah.
we got a couple of phone calls, and their first question is, what's the tech play? What's the database play? I'm like, well, I'm not really a software company, but
Yeah. Now people look for different. If you're going to go raise money, there's got to be differentiation and ability to scale, which is hard, right? It's as you try to grow and scale year over year, it's not easy. And so I think for me, having capital just allowed me to invest in what I needed to do to build out a team to ensure every year we're hiring 15, 20 new builders, we're acquiring things. And so it's other than that, when you're light on capital and you're a founder doing work yourself and growing a business, it's a lot of hats to wear.
You got that right. You got that right. I feel it every day.
Yeah.
Let me, so how many employees did you say? 300?
350.
Wow. That's outstanding. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
By the way, for the listeners, before I start asking you some other questions, I want to get your advice on some stuff. Just real quick, I want to get this in there. It's ZRGpartners.com is where you can go to look up all the awesome stuff about Larry and his team. Great website, by the way. Very, very nice. And Larry Hartman is also, of course, on LinkedIn. You can ping him there. And Larry told me before we started recording that he loves getting little sales messages from chat bots. So make sure you ping him with a bunch of those.
Always a treat for every morning to start your day.
So funny. I do the same thing. I wake up right away. I'm like, okay, let me delete these 20 sales messages.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, I want to get into some candidate stuff here. How important are soft skills right now compared to specific experiences or, skill sets? Would you rate soft skills higher if you had to force rank experiences on a resume versus people skills?
I mean, the way we think about it in our side, I mean, the client's going to start with, I want these 8 critical experiences, right? I need a CFO with 20 years experience who knows industrial, that's been through this, and this, right? So, I mean, I'd start with, first you have to have the technical background, without that, you're not getting in the door. Once you're in the door, I think certainly how you stand out through those soft skills is pretty important. But without that, I mean, I still think, experience in our world, experiences of, checking the box of the 8 things the client's looking for, which, as gets very specific in terms of, their laundry list of what they'd like to have in a dream candidate, kind of starts the conversation. Once you're through that, then the soft skills start to have a much bigger impact.
Do you guys check social media for candidates? Do you look through and like, okay, let me make sure this candidate's not a psycho on Facebook or ranting about some crazy stuff?
You certainly do. I mean, doing Google searches and just putting names in, you find, a lot of stuff will pop up to make sure there's no surprises when you get to that point. But, we also see, the background checks, we'll do our reference checking and work, but a lot of our clients do their own as well. I mean, they're, if they're hiring a CEO or CFO, they're going to put it through a pretty extensive process.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a team sport. Background checking is us and the client and understanding what they're going to do, so we don't replicate kind of what's happening on both sides.
For the listeners out there, I know ZRG recruits people that are already in the executive space most of the time, but if you're listening to this episode and you're a middle manager or an early stage manager and you want to reach C-level at some point, you need to be careful right now, today, starting right now. You need to be careful about what you do with social media, because it could later come back to haunt you and it could affect hiring decisions on the other side. I see it all the time.
No, exactly. And I have that discussion with people that are just friends you're trying to guide and just say, listen, you need to be Switzerland when it comes to your
exactly
views, because
bingo.
You're going to alienate half the world with what you say. And you want to put yourself in a spot where you're 50% of the opportunities you're not going to get because of a stance you have. And that's personal. Let's keep business, and that's personal. And, that's typically my advice. I know people can get passionate about causes, but at the same time, business is business, right? And so I think that's, certainly how I would guide if it was talking to a friend and trying to give them career advice. And I've done that where I've seen postings and things going on LinkedIn where you say, listen, you're not doing yourself any favors. You're just, you don't need to do that.
You said it so well, Larry, and I have said the same thing. I tell people all the time, I said, look, here's the deal. I don't care what the topic is, whatever the hot topic is going on in the country, most of the time it's 50-50 or close to it, right? Maybe it's 60-40 sometimes or whatever. But to your point, whatever the topic is, you're going to piss off half of your audience if you start saying dumb shit online. And so I could not agree more. And I've said the exact same thing. Switzerland. I like that, by the way. I'm going to use that from now on.
Nice neutral country, never gets in a war, doesn't have any enemies. There's something good about that.
I've had guests on the podcast challenge me on that. They're like, well, you have a podcast and you're a CEO of a small business. It's your responsibility. I love it. I love that word, by the way. It's your responsibility to speak up and blah, blah, blah. And I say, look, hey, we're a $1.5 million firm. I need all the customers I can get. I'm not trying to make anybody mad on either side. Yeah. That's what I always tell them. Yeah. So CEOs speaking out for companies and taking sides on social media on issues I think that's crazy. I don't advise it.
No, and I think you see it. I mean, with Twitter and Jack Dorsey. I mean, and in that world, certainly they take strong views on things. But I think in general, when we're doing searches, they want to find backgrounds that aren't going to offend half their employee base. If you're a CEO
exactly
company, right, half your employees are Democrat and Republican. Half, you got
that's right.
Not vaccinated. You've got so many issues that you can't always be an effective leader when posing your personal views on things that don't relate to the business. So
couldn't agree more. That is great. That is great input, great advice, Larry. Thank you for sharing that. How important is LinkedIn to you and your team? Do you rate it as important as the resume? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's important to find people. I mean, I think, in the sense of being found, it's great. You find, you find what a client's looking for to come up with a target list through LinkedIn, right? And so I think, certainly if I was giving advice to middle management, people early in their careers, it's, your LinkedIn profile is probably way more important than the resume, because if you want to be found for opportunities, that's how recruiters are going to find you. And they're going to find you through keywords, right? You're going to need to have the keywords that they're plugging in to locate you to be able to get in the game. So I think without it, you're not in the game. I mean, you're on the outside, and it would just look strange. I mean, today, how often do you find someone where you can't find them on LinkedIn? When you can't find them, it's like a red flag. Like, why is this person off the grid? I mean, become that mainstream, right?
I tell people the same thing. I say, look, by the way, when I'm talking to a client, if I'm getting ready to present a candidate to a client, by the time I say, hey, Mrs. Client, listen, I want to introduce you to Johnny Brown. I'm going to send you the information on Johnny Brown. Before I'm finishing the sentence, they're typing the name into LinkedIn and pulling the profile up, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's and then what happens, my advice for the listeners on this episode is, then what happens is, if your LinkedIn is bad, I think you take the risk of the hiring manager getting an early negative impression of you that is unnecessary. So don't let that happen, because even if your resume is great, they've already made some quick judgments in their head about you because they glanced at your LinkedIn profile, which is why I think it's so important.
It is.
Okay, let me ask you this. Most difficult position in the country to recruit for right now? I mean, I have my answer, but I just want to see if yours is the same or similar.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of life science work. So I just say we get some really hard searches where they want a chief medical officer that knows a very specific drug therapy that's got to move to a very specific location. And there's 12 people in the world that have done that job. Right? Like, that's hard, so I'd say, on the technical side of high-end recruiting, and life science is a big sector for us, we get some pretty difficult roles on that side. Functionally, I think what you're asking, maybe, it's not hard to recruit CEOs. I mean, CFOs right now, we do a lot of CFO work, are in demand. They're, it's tougher to get them to move in the market we're in now, but I'd say it's, more the technical, difficult roles. I mean, we get, once in a while, we'll get VP, Director of Engineering searches on the software side. Those are challenging.
Yes.
So.
Hey, I know there's a lot of software engineers and data scientists probably listening to this episode as we move along. And I know you guys are all awesome, but I'm just telling you, your day of the day of reckoning is coming, where you will not be as valuable when robots start writing code. Full stack developers may not be as cocky as they are right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about this? What about this Great Resignation? Term that I keep hearing and seeing in the news. Just what are your thoughts about the topic?
Well, I don't know what you're seeing in your business, but we're seeing across the retained search side, it is the busiest year in 20 years I've ever seen. There's more work going on, there's more opportunity. And so, I think a couple of factors. You've got executives changing jobs more often. For us, just creates more work. The average tenure of a CEO now is, down from what it used to be, almost in half in the number of years. CFO
What is it, three? Is it three and a half, or what is it?
Yeah, 4.5 years.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
10 years ago, it was 8, 10 years, right? And so, every role, people are more apt to change more frequently, and then you throw, the young millennials and Gen Zs in there, and 2 years and change the job means nothing there, right? And in the days, when I was growing up, that was a
Crazy.
mark where you would not get the interview because you change jobs too frequently.
Yes.
Now it's happening all the time. So I think for us, there's just a lot more churn going on. There's wage inflation going on right now for the positions in demand. So it's busy, and so I think the Great Resignation, I think it's churning and changing, and people just looked at themselves during the pandemic, said, am I happy? Am I doing what I want? Am I being paid fairly? Like every one of those questions got asked, and people could resign or change jobs because of appreciation, compensation, burnout, and burnout became a factor, right? A lot of people just decided to exit, and so you've got this aging out too, the baby boomer leadership side. There's some industries
Right.
that have leadership. So I think for the next, hopefully for both of us, next 5 years, it should be the wind is at our backs in terms of recruiting being a critical part of companies achieving their goals. And it's not easy to find what people want, in terms of the talent sets. It's competitive.
I agree. The wind is at our back right now. How long will that last with technology and AI and robots interviewing people, et cetera? How long do we have, Larry, before artificial intelligence removes us from all of this? What are your thoughts there?
That's a good question, and I think people said the same thing about LinkedIn, that LinkedIn would do away with the recruiting industry. Yet, the recruiting industry is $150 billion global industry. If you look at all the spread over the numbers, there's plenty of money being spent with recruiting firms globally at all levels. So it's just had the effect of making recruiters more effective. So, I think those things will, probably have the same effect. It's going to make it easier for recruiting firms to do a good job, right? But for some reason, it's not eliminating the need for an outside provider to do the work. I do think at the lower levels, the lower you go, probably there's more risk, in terms of if you're looking at entry level, out of college roles. I think there's probably going to be more automation and matching there. But I think as you get into specialized skills where there's shortage and you need persuasion to get people to move, I think we're going to have a job for a while.
I agree.
AI bots can't convince someone to talk to you, catch them at 6 o'clock at night at their desk and open their mind that they should think about joining the Great Resign, which I think all of us do pretty effectively for our clients.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree. I think AI helps us pull the good apples out of the basket, but then from there, there's still human to human vetting that needs to happen, and convincing and selling and relationships and all the rest of it. So yeah, you're right. I think it's just going to make our jobs easier, and we can help us move faster, which that's what it's done. So agreed. How about this? Where's this remote thing going? Are we going to live in a world now where it's hybrid remote, or do you think I see lots of stuff in the press where some companies are pushing to go back, some are. What are your thoughts, and what are you doing at ZRG on this topic?
Yeah, so Yeah, I'd say start with us. I mean, we're 350 people around the world in like 35 offices with lots of people working from home, Regis offices, small hub offices. So for us, where someone was located was always flexible. And like a lot of recruiting firms, I think that was the case. And all you needed was a computer, internet, and a phone, and that hasn't, for us, it's been great. I mean, it's probably lowered rent costs, and where our margins are bigger because we have less rent now than we would have had 2 years ago. But I think our clients, there's a missing part to that. I mean, we're even seeing in our organization, leadership is coming back to offices. I mean, to be around growing a company with your leadership team not together is a disadvantage. And so, I think when you look at, kind of the positions, there'll be certain positions, I think that they're never going to go back to 5 days in the office, but I think there'll be a push. I think we look 5 years out, is probably going to be this hybrid of 3 days. You're in the office 3 days, you're home 2 days. It's going to be a perk that people are fighting to keep, right? So I think we'll end up somewhere in the middle, but I think it'll tilt back the other way. I mean, at some point, people aren't going to enjoy living and working in the same room, right? I mean, to me, that is going to get old. I mean, it's something nice about leaving your home and going to an office and coming back to your home at night.
It is nice if you don't have an hour and a half commute, right?
Yeah, that's true. No, that's the opposite. You're right. If you're in New York and on a train, if you're in London and taking the tube, I mean,
yeah,
there's certainly that 2 or 3 days a week is probably where it ends up. So,
okay, very good. How about COVID? Let me ask you first, what's ZRG doing, if you don't mind sharing, with regards to rules on masks and vaccinations? What are you doing as a company, and where do you see that going with companies? And you can tie that into the whole Biden thing that was supposed to come out 1st of January. If you can just walk me through some of that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so I mean, right now it's optional to be in an office for folks at ZRG, and those who want to be in are in, and those that want to be at home are at home. We'll look to have a couple days back in the office is kind of the norm as soon as it feels safe to do that. And we're certainly watching what the requirements are. I mean, Biden's put if you have over 100 employees, some testing requirements and some rules in place that we're watching. And, it's forced us to look at, okay, we've got to buy new software to track things and do things. So I think we're going to be compliant with what the rules are. But I'm not so clear those rules are going to pass. I mean, there's a lot of complication, right? If you've got workers working from home, and I'm sure it's all clear how the guidelines that have been put out there are going to be implemented on smaller businesses. And I think it's probably harder on a 100-person company or 200-person company to comply with a bunch of rules imposed by the government on that than it would be for a Goldman Sachs or a GE might, in terms of implementing.
It sounds like what I heard you say is you're in a little bit of a holding pattern to see what happens with this Biden thing.
Yeah,
and I think
once it's safe. I mean, once
yep.
everybody feels safe, we're not pushing anybody if they're not safe to travel or but we're having company meetings, we're out seeing clients, we're on planes, but if someone is not, that's fine. I mean, we respect that. So we're leaving it up to the individuals to decide what their comfort level is.
I like that. And I do agree with what you just said. If I'm in Vegas and you're asking me to put my chips down on red or black, whether or not this Biden thing will pass, I don't see it. I don't see it happening. I think there's just way too many complications, too much pushback from states and different things. For sure it'll get punted down the road. Whether or not it actually passes, yeah, we'll see. And I feel a lot of companies doing that. Almost every CEO I've talked to, everybody's kind of just like, okay, let's just hold and see what happens here.
But we're seeing, I'm sure you're seeing this too. The flip side of that is we've got clients now that want to know vaccination statuses on candidates, right?
Yes.
And so that's, again, we're not asking unless a client says we will not interview someone who's not vaccinated. We won't hire someone who's not vaccinated. It's like, okay, now you have a difficult discussion where 20% of the workforce doesn't want to do that. And so, it's not us pushing, one way or another, but we're servants of our clients, right? I mean, what they want, we're looking to find for them. And so that's been interesting to see. There are some companies taking a different stance. It's not, there's not one answer to this issue. So.
Well said. And we at Riderflex have been playing the Switzerland role when it comes to COVID. I've told the team and the recruiters, I said, hey, look, we as a company do not have a stance either way. What we do is we represent our clients. If this client wants us to ask that question, we will. And if this other client doesn't care about it, then we won't. We're doing the same thing.
Yeah, but it's coming up. I mean, I'm surprised. I mean, how many companies are now, they're not interviewing if someone's not vaccinated or hiring. And so, that's, it'll be interesting to see where this all shakes out. I think 6 months, 12 months, we'll have a better view. In the meantime, it's, a lot of things changing on the fly, for all of us.
Yeah, my prediction is, I mean, there's, people are, especially at the lower ranking jobs or the lower paying jobs, there's so many short staffed situations going on. And I mean, every store you go by, they're short staffed. Everybody needs more people. I can promise you, or I can guarantee you, the CEOs of some of these retailers that are short staffed now, the last thing they want to do is implement another rule that's going to make them even more short staffed.
Yeah, exactly.
So my wife works for a retailer that I won't mention on the call, but she came home the other day. She's like, we're short 30 people. She goes, it's Black Friday and we're down 30 people. And, if they try to enforce some other stuff, we're going to be even more short staffed.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. You're going to hotels, you're going to restaurants, and, you got to be patient with mediocre and non-existent service a lot.
Oh man. Yes.
I think people are pretty understanding of it, but, we got to get back to normal here. So
Agreed. How about this? A few more questions. Diversity and inclusion is a sexy topic and verbiage that a lot of companies talk about, and they put it on their websites, and they want to be recognized as waving that flag. Sometimes I feel like it's not sincere from companies because they just want to act like they're on the wagon with everybody. What does it really mean to ZRG, and what have you guys done to make sure that you're doing all the right things?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd say, again, if we take the client view of that and say, how do we address diversity, equity, inclusion in the work we do? And I'd say at the, CEO board level, it is literally every search has a diverse slate of candidates to pick from. And they will not go through and make a CEO hire or a senior level hire without looking at a slate of candidates where they have options of diversity. And I think it's part of, the positive push to say they're making sure that there's more opportunities for those that maybe wouldn't have had the opportunities 10 years ago. So, I think it's created that the net effect of that is it's harder to do search work to find that, chief medical officer who's got all the skills, who's also a diverse candidate, but a client say, we need to see diversity in the slate. So it actually makes search more valuable, that we can dig hard to find that, kind of needle in a haystack of a skill set that also is diverse. So I think that's certainly part of it. We measure diversity with the work we do. We reward researchers in our team for finding diverse candidates on the target list. And so, it's a proactive effort to find diverse candidates for clients. That's part of it. We have a head of diversity, equity, inclusion, a woman we brought on. Her name is Zing Shah. She was the former head of DE&I for the Atlanta Hawks basketball team, Starbucks head of DE&I, Marsh McLennan. And a lot of our clients want to talk about the problem. They want to talk about, we've got issues. How do we address it beyond just, give us diverse candidates? And so that's been helpful as well. She's quite a thought leader, and it's helped some of the pretty big brands deal with how do they systemically address changing the nature of the workforce. But it's a big topic. I mean, I think it's one that is making it harder for searches to get done in a short period of time because they want to see more candidate flow.
Have you ever been faced with this? This is a little more granular question, but have you ever been faced with a situation, super tough search, very few people in a certain state that have the skill set? Client told you, look, I want to see diverse candidates. I want to see one Hispanic, one Black, one white, one Asian, whatever. They told you specifically what they wanted to see. Have you been faced with that where you said, okay, I'm going to give you that, but they aren't as qualified on paper as what I could have given you over here? Have you been faced with that situation? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, so sometimes to get diversity in a slate, you've got to look at step up candidates or out of the box candidates. So I'll give you an example. We've done work in Miami with some global companies that say we need a CFO that's Spanish speaking and we prefer a female, right? And that's just what we want because we deal with LATAM out of Miami, we're global. And so, the world of Hispanic CFOs that run billion-dollar companies, the club is not very large, right? So we're going to go out and identify, 40, 50 possible candidates. But the way we expand is we'll tell the client, listen, you may have to look at a controller stepping into becoming a CFO. You may have to look outside of industry, and you may be in this industry, want someone out of that industry. We're going to have to go out of that area. We may have to look at exporting somebody globally into the role. So, you're right. There's sometimes, the talent pool dictates your sea of choices. And if you're going to find diversity, you've got to look outside of sometimes the ideas they have of what the profile would be. And I think clients now are pretty good about that. They'll say, fine, let's look at some maybe non-traditional backgrounds and consider that.
Okay. And is that okay for them? Is it okay for a client to say, I want a male, I want a female, I want a Hispanic female? Is that okay for them to say, to tell recruiting firms that?
Well, they may say we want diversity on the slate, and our preference is we need we're dealing with, with South America. We need a Spanish-speaking CFO that can deal with our subsidiaries. It becomes a qualification for the role. Sometimes. I think what we get too is we get talent mapping projects where we had a big financial service client said we want to look at digital talent, but we've got to hire 20 digital VPs, but we want you to map out all of the diverse digital talent that fits this. Show us some mapping of the market. And so we show them 100 potential candidates. Then it's okay, now we want you to recruit specifically out of this talent pool to fill these roles because we're not balanced enough. We need to change the makeup of our team. And so I think clients are pretty prescriptive around trying to address where maybe the nature of a team is not what they want it to be. And so some of the tools around just, mapping and identifying that we can do for a client help solve the problem.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that, Larry. Thank you. Just a couple more questions here. I know we're getting close to wrap up. I see articles and things come out on LinkedIn or in the press around, let me give you two examples of something I saw recently. One was, should companies give paid leave if your pet dies? Another one I saw recently was, should companies be allowed to call employees after hours? I saw an article on that. And I see these topics come up that to me as a small business owner feels like, okay, this is like a Google, Microsoft, IBM, Amazon. These are big company people who live in an HR world that come up with these things that sound really cool. But if you're a small business owner, which is the majority of the country, by the way, if you're a small business owner, you're like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I'm just trying to survive on cash flow here. Don't be rolling out more rules on me. Thoughts around some of the push around things like that and how it affects small business? Any comments?
Yeah, it doesn't work. Having built two businesses from zero to scale, and when you're small, having a person or two leave a team when you have 10 or 20 people is a huge hardship, and it's difficult. You can't just replace that person. So, I think that, I saw one today. I think Goldman announced they've changed the policy that if a family member dies, there's 3 weeks of paid leave for an employee. Like it seems to be really moving into, like you say, not just, a bunch of reasons why you can have time off to deal with personal issues. And so it's catch-22. Right? It's great if you're a big company and you can absorb that.
Exactly.
Right. And you've got backup people that can step into a role. It's a whole lot easier. When you're a small company, take an under 50 employee company, to your point, that's a huge part of the economy. You got to have, in my mind, you got to have different rules. It's just, you can't run it and be profitable as a small business with, people, if you have 2 or 3 people leave at once over different issues, you'd be really harmed as a business.
Agreed. I'll just say one more thing on that topic is this, I had somebody call me and say, well, some of these small businesses don't care about their employees as much as the bigger companies. And I just really that really upset me. I said, no, I said, actually, it's complete opposite. We probably care more about our people, but we're just trying to survive. We're
Yeah.
trying to survive and run the business here. It's not because we don't care. If I say I don't want to pay for pet leave, that doesn't mean I care less about my employees than Amazon. That doesn't mean that. I just, there's different things at play. And I think the employees that they just haven't run it. They don't understand cash flow. They don't understand small business. They haven't lived it. So they're kind of ignorant to how that works. And some of those things I see, I get wound up a little bit when I see them in the press.
No, it's difficult. No, I mean, it's, when you're a small business, you're an underdog competing against bigger organizations, right? And so
yes,
it's not easy. And until you've lived, with having to balance the checkbook and figure out how to make payroll when things go up and down, it's difficult. So no, I think as a business owner, you've been there, I've been there. It's a catch-22. You want to have great perks and you want your employees happy.
Sure.
As long as you can make a return and your customers are happy, right?
Exactly.
I always tell our team, it's three people have to be happy. You got to have your customer happy, your employees have to be happy, and your shareholders. And if you don't make all three happy, you've got a flawed business model. And so, I think some of those things could tilt it where these shareholders, which in small businesses are the owners, if you could do all that and make no money and the model doesn't work, the business.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Two last questions. Great stuff. By the way, I could ask you 50 more, but I got two more really quick. If you could, I think you're 4 years older than me. You got your year of college graduation on your LinkedIn. So I'll just tell people, I think you're 58, 57. Am I close?
That's in that range.
Cause I saw you graduated college 85. I graduated 89. By the way, we should do another episode and just talk about the 80s. You have to come back and talk about it. If you could call your 21-year-old self coming out of college and give that young man some advice based on what you've learned, what would you tell him today?
I'd say nothing at that age, and you're just starting a learning journey. You come out and you got a college degree, and I think the world is ahead of you, and there's so much you learn through experience that you open yourself up to all methods of expanding yourself. And it's easy to look back now where I am and just say, wow, if I knew what I knew now back then, how much quicker I could have grown my first company, how much more value I could have created had I known, but you don't. And so I think for young people today to be able to attach to mentors, to be able to connect to successful people, to pick their brains, I think is a blessing. And I think there's a lot of folks that, certainly willing to give back to speed that up. And I've had through the years some mentors that have been good that way, that were kind of role models that, I could pick their brain about their journeys, and it helped me kind of understand where I wanted to go. So I'd say just realize nothing, the journey's beginning, and learn and read and watch videos and read books and talk to successful people, study business models, see what works, and study failures, see what didn't work, and you'll become, I think, a lot more valuable in the business sense.
Last question. If you could put your core purpose in life right now into a sentence at this age, at this stage in your career, what does that sound like?
That's a tough question. I mean, core purpose, I'd break it in different categories. Business, it's growth and success. And it's, creating a place where employees thrive and where shareholders thrive. And that's a whole lot of fun. The personal side is just keeping balance. To me, it's balance of family, faith, work, and personal enjoyment. And I think certainly, I'd put, maybe if you broke it down to one thing, it's live a balanced life where you're checking all the boxes and don't get so far tilted in one area that you destroy, your family, or, because you pursue work too hard. But at the same time, you got to pursue work hard enough to provide for your family. So I'd say just find that balance, and, it's hard, but, it's possible.
Excellent stuff. Larry Hartman, thank you so much for being on the Riderflex podcast and sharing your story. Congratulations on everything you've built, my friend.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. And congratulations to you as well. And it's great to spend time with you. And we'll continue to fight the good fight for talent out there in the world. Let's see if we can make a difference.